Hello, Gaston County. Welcome to episode number 83. That's right. You're as shocked as I am. We made it to episode 83 of Gaston's Great, a podcast highlighting some of the great things happening in and around Gaston County. I'm your host, Stephen Long, as we come to you once again from the international headquarters of GSM Services right here in downtown Gastonia. We simply believe in discussing more of the reasons why Gaston's great. We are highlighting another great organization this week as we highlight the Gaston Music Education Foundation. We have Bill Moore with us today. Bill is a past president and current board member of the organization. Bill, it's great to have you on, and welcome to the podcast.
Thank you. Appreciate your having us.
Absolutely. So as usual, we like to get right to it. So Bill, if you don't mind, just start off with maybe telling us just a little bit about yourself. Anything you'd like to share?
It was a nice, warm October morning, and I was actually born in Chapel Hill.
Oh, that's unfortunate.
I thought so too, eventually, but moved around a lot as an Air Force brat.
Okay.
Saw an episode of Judd for the Defense back in the day,
Wow.
and decided that's what I wanted to do, was to be a lawyer. It didn't hurt anything that my eyesight had just been diagnosed as needing assistance, and so back in those days you couldn't fly a fighter plane like my dad did, so without perfect vision. So anyway, I didn't get his eyes, but did get to travel around a bit, and came back to North Carolina after going to college in Florida and pursuing my major, Nancy, and that's where we may diverge, Stephen. I ended up in Durham and I got my law degree at Duke. So
okay.
My dad was a Tar Heel. Both my sons ended up graduating from UNC, and I'm the blue sheep of the family.
Are you okay over there? That's funny.
I'm making it the best I can. But we moved to Raleigh after coming to Gastonia for our first tour of duty in 1981. And there, my son decided that since we were in Raleigh, he would have to be a Wolfpack fan. I don't know how that's worked out for him later years, but there's
a lot of character building for Wolfpack fans.
Absolutely. I have always had a love for music, and am an amateur with jack of many instruments, master of none. And
I've been the fortunate recipient of hearing some of that as myself through First Methodist Church, so we're grateful.
Well, I'm grateful to First Methodist for giving us the opportunity, and appreciate your surviving that. But as a result, I've gotten involved with the Gaston Music Education Foundation and some of its other affiliated organizations. But that's enough about me. The Gaston Music Education Foundation has been around since 1950, and I happened to find the original charter, and I just thought it was neat because it includes, the seals and all of the fancy scrolling that now, it's electronic and you file it with the Secretary of State, and that's that. But this was interesting to me, and it was originally the Gastonia Music Education Foundation. Okay. And then in about 1994, October of 94, we expanded to be to the county, and so now we're the Gaston Music Education Foundation, and we go by the initials GMEF. The purpose of GMEF is to provide money for music scholarships to deserving high school students for summer music camp, and to college-bound students who will major in music. And so we raise money to give money away. Okay. And that started in 1950. Actually, I found to raise money, we've done a lot of different things. Of course, these days it's heavily on the community foundation, the community run,
right. Okay.
Which we won't be listed, but we are a part of. So don't be daunted if you don't see GMEF. You can still give to us, and the community foundation will still help with that. But back in the 90s, they did a tour of homes.
I remember those kind of events. Yeah.
Right, and of course we probably would have canceled all of that during the pandemic, but it was very, very interesting to me. This had the history from 1950 to 95, and apparently back in 1950, a nucleus of women from the Gastonia Music Club, led by, this says, Mrs. Maurice Honigman, but I think it was really her name was I'll mispronounce it, Helig, but Ms. Honigman recognized the immense vocal talents of a young Gastonia high school student named Dan Presley.
Okay.
He later changed his name to Elvis, and no, that's not right. But they sought out area businessmen to make donations to help raise money for his college education. And as a result, they were successful, and this foundation came out of that effort. So it really is heavily membered by music teachers and others who love music. They brought me along just because I like to run my mouth, and I guess they knew someday they'd need me for this podcast.
Well, it's interesting. So this in this story for you listeners out there is on the website, and even I spent some time on there preparing for today. But it's interesting you say 1950 because there was a time when 1950 didn't seem very long ago. But what is that? 73 years now. You know,
right?
I know when I was 20, that wasn't but a couple of years ago. So it's nice to hear an organization that's been around that long and still active, and you can even see some recipients. And I saw that most of them looked like they were sponsored by teachers or music teachers through the county.
That's right.
Yeah, and also, oh gosh, I just lost my train of thought, Amy. And I was really going down a good little rabbit hole there. I was going to say that it's like so many organizations that we've spoken to over the last 2 years here at Gaston's Great. Typically, you might find somebody like her, and I forgot her name already, Ms. Honigman, is that right?
Honigman.
So many organizations are started by one individual or two individuals that have a passion, and and then it leads to them recruiting friends and local individuals who have the same passion, and that's how so many organizations and initiatives get started. And then to hear that and for one to be sustained for this long, it's really there's so many good stories like that here around Gaston County, and so many organizations that started exactly that way. I mean, one person with a vision, and that gets a kind of that passion in their heart to help. Sounded like in this case one individual, right? And he
started with one individual with a great voice.
Yeah, and here we are, 70 plus years later, and still helping kids in our community who have a passion for music. So, so you shared a little bit. So the mission and so what is like your role now? I mean, being a past president, what was that like? And just kind of share your current role and maybe the day in the life or a month in the life of the Gaston Music Education Foundation. Is that a fair question?
It is a fair question. I'm going to give you a year in the life because one of the things that is a very attractive feature of this foundation is it is very focused on its mission, which is to give scholarships.
Okay.
And so, and while I'm thinking of it, I need to make sure I have correctly pronounced Hinda.
Okay.
Hinda, Hinda L. Honigman, who was the president of the National Federation of Music Clubs, lived here in good old Gastonia back in the 50s, but she was the president of the National Federation at that time, and one of the incorporators, and was instrumental in bringing this about. And so, like you say, it was one person who saw a need and recruited her friends and other businesses in the community, and now we give out scholarships to students from 10th grade to 12th. We have in the past, when high school was 9th through 12th, included 9th and even at some points 8th graders, but we've had to focus just to make sure that we are able to keep giving scholarships, and that is our real mission. So we raise money to give those scholarships, and we give the scholarships. Now, that happens once a year. We have auditions. So the applications are available through either music teachers in your school, band leaders, choir teachers, but most importantly these days on the website. So gmef.org will get you all of this history and the application and the deadline dates. So for instance, this year the deadline. It's usually mid-December, and the applicants can apply online, and there is an actual audition with judges, just like any music competition in school for instruments or vocals. And we have judges who are qualified and know music theory and everything, and they make sure that the students are at a certain level of proficiency, and those students in high school can either go to, we have a couple of camps. The Canon is a 3-week summer camp,
Okay.
and there are full scholarships plus private lessons available there. And UNC Greensboro has a 1-week summer camp, which also is a full scholarship plus some private instruction. The college scholarships are for usually $3,000 to $4,000 spread out over 4 years. And one of the conditions, you have to major in music and stay in that major to continue to get the
Sure.
scholarship. You also have to, for the college scholarship, pass a music theory test. But for the summer camps, you just have to perform. And so we meet once a year to have an annual meeting. The executive committee meets once in advance to plan it. And then we have a great group of folks who have run this many years. And so the auditions are held, the scholarships are granted, and then one of my favorite parts of this group, in usually April, this year it was February 20th.
Okay.
I'm thinking April because that's when the money runs. But there's a scholarship winners concert, and the students who have been awarded scholarships perform for the public, and they also invite another one of my pet projects, the Gaston String Orchestra.
Okay.
Usually with classical violin, viola, cello, bass, and we perform at the intermission, just a few numbers, but getting to see the students on various instruments, anything from drums to piano, of course, voice, but it really is varied. And this year we have, strangely enough, a unique instrument, and I'll have to find what that is, but I've misplaced it, sorry.
You look like your attorney are preparing for a case, Bill.
Well, I'm an idiot trying to give you information about this wonderful group, but yeah, buried in here. But piano, woodwinds, brass, horns, drum, percussion, and this year's entries are for marimba, and we happen to have 2. But that concert is just a treat.
I'm sure it is.
So if we will have missed it by the time this airs, but there will be another one next year.
Okay.
And so
where's that typically held? Is it something? Is it rotate, or depending on where the string orchestra is playing, or?
No, the string orchestra takes the mountain to Muhammad, but a church you're very familiar with, First Methodist.
That's what I saw some pictures that were obviously on the website taken at First Methodist. So.
Right, yeah. And they have been gracious enough to host us, and so that's where it has been. Of course, it has in the past been in other places, but the church sanctuary is so perfect for the acoustics. But that is our year. We raise the money in the spring, and we meet. The executive committee meets, and then the whole board meets in the fall, usually about the 3rd week in September. We set the dates for the auditions, and those dates and those applications are all on the website at gmef.org. And then we have the auditions in usually the 3rd week of January. Sometimes it coincides with the MLK Junior holiday. Okay. And if you're unable to actually be there, we have done virtual auditions, but you can contact us, and that information is also on the website.
Okay.
So,
Yeah, we'll make sure before we finish to make sure that we will repeat that multiple times, how people can get involved and donate or whatever the case may be.
okay.
Whatever they feel compelled to do.
So that's kind of the whole cycle.
Okay.
And then it repeats.
So typically, how many scholarships are you giving out a year, or does it just depend on applications and money available, or is there some set?
It does vary. It
Okay.
depends on how much we have in some years, although we have been very fortunate, and the Community Foundation helps us and invests the money that some donations, of course, come with bequests and for certain things, like just for piano.
Gotcha.
So we maintain the foundation truly as in the nature of a foundation. And so we have some funds that are invested and carry over, but the others we raise. And there are, well, as you've probably seen from the website, a dozen or so, but it does vary because some years we have a lot of applications and a lot of very qualified students. Other years we have few applications, but almost everyone is qualified.
Understood. Yep.
And sometimes, we, for some reason, the word hasn't gotten out, or perhaps date conflicts. But there are some years where we aren't able to give scholarships because no one applied for that particular scholarship.
How long have you personally been involved with the foundation?
Oh, gosh, I guess probably about 1999
Okay.
or so.
Wow.
And I served for president for many years, and it was actually a very great organization to be involved with, particularly at the top, because all I had to do was call the meeting. and we have a wonderful group of music teachers and real musicians who have this whole system organized and have the contacts with the schools. Now, the Canon Scholarship and the UNCG Scholarship, of course, deal with their particular institutions, but the college scholarships could be anywhere. The college of your choice, as long as you're majoring in music.
Right.
So we have folks that coordinate that, and the whole idea and what it brings to the community is that we help young musicians to develop their talent and their potential, and hopefully they will continue to be involved in music either as a career or as an avocation for the rest of their life. And some of them will come back to Gastonia and Gaston County,
Sure,
and enhance our pool of very eclectic music.
To your point about college, I saw a name on there. I think it was Jacob Dykstra-House, who is a family. My wife and I are friends with his parents, and I don't know if this particular scholarship that he received was for, or the scholarship was for college or maybe a music camp. But he may be done already, but went to TCU in Dallas.
Wow.
And he's got an unbelievable voice. And so I don't know if he's not graduated. I'm sure he's about to. So you go on the website, and between the board of directors and the recipients, most people that's involved in the community here locally, they'll see names recognized. Especially the board is it's just a list of well-known and talented people here in Gaston County. So I always like to look at the organizations we speak to here. I like to look at the board and see who I might know, and you can tell it's just a very engaged group of individuals here in Gaston County.
I've found that to be very true. In fact, it's ironic. I received this 1995 Tour of Homes brochure, and I noticed that two of the homes, I know most of these people, but two of the homes that were listed then were Mr. and Mrs. T.J. Solomon and Mr. and Mrs. John D. Kirsch, both of whom are my law partners now.
Yeah.
Of course, I never knew that. I didn't even know that they offered their homes up for the tour.
That's wild, isn't it?
It is crazy. But I have a list of that has been highlighted of just what one person knew of the folks that came back.
Okay, that's interesting.
And I don't know if you can see, but the highlight should at least show up that there are quite a few who return to the community.
To Gaston County.
And we have some. One person that I know, Carol Jean Weinkoff, who was a recipient, went to school, came back, was a music teacher, and brought her students to audition and got so many people involved in music through her life and through GMEF, and was a long-standing member of the board. Yeah. But she was involved in every aspect of the group, from youth on up. So
during your time, on the board and involved with it, you just mentioned one, but are there other student or recipients or students or just anything that kind of that's really stood out? Somebody that you said, wow, or you it's obvious you made an impact. Something that some anecdotal story that you can think of during your time.
Well, I think Carol Jean spoke to me, but I noticed a number of other folks also whom you would know from the community or from church that are still, having been the recipient of a scholarship, have come back and are now music teachers or teachers in our schools in the music programs, band directors. We have college music professors. We have one professional who performs with musical theater in California. We have a songwriter in Nashville, Tennessee.
Oh, wow.
And that's just a sample of the 711 scholarships that have been given from 1951 through this year, 2023.
That's a big number.
It is. But we have folks, you'll run across them. You may not know their connection to GMEF, but music teachers and band directors, organists, church music directors, members of local music ensembles, and just other individuals who have music in their lives.
Music and choir directors, band directors. We had a great experience at Forest View High School. Our Hannah and Alex both were in the marching band, and Alex went on to march at Western Carolina. And so, those teachers really make a impact on the kids that they're, that they're teaching, and maybe sometimes more so than others, just because it's something that most of those students are passionate about, right? They've found they can find a group of other kids at that age that are, have the same interest and the same passions. I know it makes such a big difference for our son when he went to Western, going to band camp early, and getting to interact with all these kids. It really made that transition easy. So my point there is, the impact is more than just playing the instrument.
Oh, yes.
And so that's just kind of the glue, or whatever you want to say it, that brings them together and keeps them interested. And, and something that we're grateful for here, our son has graduated, and now, he's back involved with church. Right. Mostly because of individuals that when he played in the brass ensemble at First Methodist, when he graduated college, guess what? They were contacting him. We know you're back in town. Can you want to?
Perfect.
Yeah. So as a parent, that's nice to see our son getting back interested in church through music. And so,
and it is a big draw. I mean, some people, fall away both from church and music, but I have found that there's a certain magic that you can't really explain, harmonies and things. Sometimes when you play with other musicians, there's just a kind of an unspoken synchronization, and I've played in churches and with organized groups, but also just with music circles of friends, sitting around a campfire with guitars or whatever. And there's a thread that we're a family of friends, and it really has enhanced some people's lives and brought them back from not isolation necessarily, but it's easy to get busy with your career and to get busy with your family and life that fills in. And music offers an opportunity to communicate and reach out and really interact with other people in a way that is beautiful, and that even when some of the notes aren't, it is a learning experience. It helps you learn, and it's mathematically based, so it has so many benefits. And this is just one of the groups that requires minimal maintenance, but has an astounding impact.
Sure. So looking ahead, Bill, for the next few years, the future, and I think we typically ask that classic question of 5 to 10 years, but I'm not necessarily a fan of that narrow of a focus. But what do you and the board see, for the future for the organization? Any big plans, or is it just still cruising along like you are now?
Well, survive and thrive is always the plan. Excuse me. Our goals are to continue to promote the scholarship opportunities,
right.
and I think that's still valid. Now, what changes with any organization, especially a nonprofit, is the type of fundraiser that you may have. So we have been very fortunate. The private donations and the businesses that have sponsored this group continue to keep us going. And I'm sure that, and we've had a few good suggestions of different projects to try and raise more money, to give more scholarships. But we really feel like success begets success, and we don't want to, it isn't broken, so we won't try and fix it. At the same time, we foresee that we will be giving scholarships. Now, what I think we also foresee is that music changes. So there's classical music that's been around for hundreds or even thousands of years, and some of that is still in the thread of popular music today. But the styles, the genres, the different types of music that are always evolving give us an opportunity to make those connections with the next generation. And so it's really fun to see the different instruments at the scholarship winners concert, which is it really is a treat. It will restore your faith in the future of the next generation, as well as music in Gaston County. But to know that we've got to be flexible and adjust to that, and tailor the scholarships to meet what the future of education, music education, will be.
Sure.
And yet we have a lot of hope and a good foundation, no pun intended, but believe that we will just continue to try and help students to foster their music and hopefully come back to the county and continue to do that. And Gaston County has an amazingly rich musical heritage and musical talent in this county, and this is just one of the ways that we try and connect those people and with the community.
It seems like even the schools here locally too, Gaston County schools, even in the middle schools, or even I'm not sure about elementary anymore, but there still seems to be a focus on that, and most schools have choir or band or something very, very specific here. And I don't know this as fact, so some of this is conjecture, but I know some parts of the country that's not necessarily the case anymore.
Well, and in all parts of the country, we need to be raising money to help help education and help teachers, because, for instance, we had a strings program in stringed instruments in Gaston County, and that is no longer.
Really?
But individual schools do have that opportunity.
Okay.
And yet it's kind of interesting that we've had to open our horizons, not just going from Gastonia music education to Gaston music education and taking in the county, but it used to be just basically, it was a private student that started it, and quickly we tried to connect with the music teachers, music instruction, band leaders, choir, the choral directors in the public schools, and now we try to reach those same people in the public schools, but also in the private schools, and also in the charter schools, and also those that are homeschooled. And we've had to, realize, hey, it's not just, the school down the street anymore. It's a lot of opportunities, and there are so many students out there who may not realize that this opportunity it's there for them. And if you are a musician and you want to pursue that, then please go to our website and check out the application and think about going to a summer camp. And if you're at the age where you're making college plans and you know that you want to major in music, come let us help you help us.
Is it typical students getting to you from, is it the teachers and band directors and choir directors? Is that how the typical students most often hear about the foundation probably, or is there some other route?
I think that was traditionally the way, and of course it was the group was founded by music teachers, and
Gotcha.
Both private and in schools. So naturally they spread the word through their colleagues. But today it's a cyber world, Stephen. So
Gotcha, yeah.
the website, I think, is actually what has saved us and allowed us to transition into the diverse educational community that we have. But yeah, we still try and reach out to any music teacher or organization that reaches kids and teaches kids, and yet I'm hoping this podcast is probably going to open the doors for a lot of folks.
We hope so. So, one question I typically ask is, why is Gaston County better? Because your organization is here. However, you've shared already so many reasons. So is there a question I haven't asked, Bill, something that, anything you'd like to share specifically? We obviously will swing back and make sure before we finish that it's very clear how our listeners can go find out more information or check out the organization, donate, or find out what's going on. But anything else, anything I haven't asked that I should have?
How did a cretin like me get to be on this podcast for such a fine or upstanding organization? And the answer is, well, I blame our president, Karen Walker, but there are also a lot of good people who are now on the board.
Yeah.
Julia Helm, who, and you will find her address on the website if you wish to make a donation. And of course, that donation can be in your will or by a direct, contribution,
Sure.
Or through the community run, which is always great for every nonprofit that participates because your dollars will go farther. So that's those folks help. We have our treasurer is Randy Boyd. Our past president is Millette Oden.
Yeah.
Who is quite a musician and director. Our scholarship chairman and really one of the prime movers of this organization is Irene Craig. And we have Susan Allen as the notification chairman, serves as the liaison for the camps and the schools. And Laura Beatty is our publicity chairman. So I should have made her come instead of me, but she's very busy as a music teacher now.
Right.
And the best way to support GMEF is to consider helping us with a donation for money, and you can be assured that money is going to go for scholarships. It's we don't do anything else, and that's one of the beauties. It's
I do like
focused,
narrow focus, right? And sometimes that's sometimes simpler is better. It's easy for organizations to start wanting to do other things or get involved in other things, and sometimes that can dilute the mission and dilute the impact a little bit. So It's nice to hear the focus has stayed right where it is for so long.
But truly, one other thing that it's not just about the money. Obviously,
sure,
money's a necessity, and you can't give scholarships without it. But I hope that you will look for the next Scholarship Winners Concert. And the one we just had back on February 20th was wonderful, and even had marimbas. So
yeah,
but check it out. Look at the website and plan to come and see what talent we have, and even if you don't make a contribution, you will get a contribution from that experience, and it really is. It's a blast, and it's impressive, and you'll leave feeling better than you did when you got there.
I'm sure.
So support us in that way as well.
So I appreciate that, Bill. And of course, this is a podcast about Gaston County. So one thing we require of our guest is to answer these. We're going to call this the music speed round of questions. I know that's kind of lame, but I come up with something different. I've never settled on a good name for this. And this is really what all the other board members, your family, your fellow church members, this is what everybody wants to know about you.
Okay.
All right. So this is the really high anxiety stuff that we have going on here at Gaston's Great. So, Bill, first question is, what is your favorite Tony's ice cream flavor?
Oh, in the summer it's grape, and in the winter it's what was my dad's favorite, butter pecan, but all year round it's got to be chocolate.
All right, yeah, chocolate is the classic, but grape is just a surprisingly popular answer.
It's a surprising
and butter pecan. So
it's a surprising flavor.
and you know what? You just named my mother's grape, and my dad's was butter pecan as well.
I'll be.
So, and mine is chocolate. So, there you go. You got it going on with those answers. Sundrop or Cheerwine?
Got to be Cheerwine for me.
Favorite local restaurant?
Ooh, I love Tequila's on Union Road, but also JP's for Asian, and oh goodness, at the Water Tower. I just picked up from last night, the Italian.
Not Vivencia, or it's something. It starts with a V.
Yes.
Well, Shogun's
right.
used to be.
It used to be Shogun's. Venezia.
Yeah, Venezia. Thank you. Yes. Amy contributing to the podcast today. I like that. Favorite outdoor activity in Gaston County, or favorite park, or?
Oh, I love kayaking on the South Fork and ending up in Cramerton at Goat Island Park.
Oh, yeah. It's a great location.
And getting an iced coffee.
Floyd and Blackie's, maybe?
Floyd and Blackie's, that's right. I didn't put them in the restaurant category, but they are one of my favorite stops.
Oh, yeah. So this is my question I'm going to ask anyway. I'm afraid I already know the answer, but I'm going to go there anyway. UNC Duke or NC State?
Born in Chapel Hill, went to law school at Duke, and yet when in Raleigh, I pull for the Wolfpack.
That's
just
what
to make you know that.
Give me some kind of clapping or something. That's a good one. Yes.
I will say, however, that I wondered why we didn't have all the Big Four. I think you really need to expand that to, Wake Forest, but
no.
Yeah, not going to happen.
Not the Demon Deeks, no. I'll consider it maybe in the future. When we get to episode 100, maybe we'll.
Or the other option would just be to eliminate UNC or Duke and just ask people NC State, and then you'll get the answer you're looking for.
Well, a lot of people know. A lot of people do know that there's only one correct answer. Bill, what is something very few people know about you?
Oh, after this podcast, not much. I guess the thing that most folks don't know is that I really don't read music very well. And when the conductor of the Gaston String Orchestra looks into the second violin section this year and has seen this podcast, I may have to audition again. But
that's funny.
But I do love music, and I'm just really slow with I don't read it like words.
That's interesting.
I'm working on it.
Very good. We can edit that out. I'm just kidding. Bill, how about a recent book, or not? This doesn't have to be recent. A book or blog or article or something you might recommend to our listeners.
A couple of books that I've read that really made an impression on me. One is Lessons in Chemistry, Bonnie. Oh goodness. But the name of the book is Lessons in Chemistry, and I know the author's first name is Bonnie, and American Dirt, which is very interesting story about a mother and son from Mexico, from Acapulco, who end up dealing with tragedy and trying to come to the United States to escape their very
Understood.
tragic circumstances. But lessons in chemistry is delightful, and it made me laugh. It made me cry. It made me angry.
Oh,
And
you get all those emotions reading. That's pretty good.
And even has a good dog story in it. So,
That's a classic then, huh?
Yeah.
Well, I'm a big reader, so and I just like asking that question, and I've read more than one of the suggestions from our guests. So, listen, I appreciate you indulging us on those Gaston County related questions, and then remember this is a podcast about Gaston County and all the good things happening around us, and there are many, and oftentimes we can easily forget those. But besides the Gaston Music Education Foundation, Bill, why would you say Gaston County is such a great place?
Well, this is my second tour of duty, Stephen, and I came to Gaston County when I was 20 years old and fresh out of law school, and couldn't imagine that I would take my wife and start a family in a place called Gastonia. But we came to this community, and we found, like you had mentioned with the Music Education Foundation, that there were different people in different aspects of this community that are seemingly interrelated. They have similar values and similar interests, and we made a great circle of friends. We got into the Little Theater back in the day, which was a good outlet for me performance-wise, but made friends that have raised kids together and stayed together literally since the early 1980s. And when we left for 11 years and went to Raleigh so that I could pursue some big firm stuff, we found that we still had those same circles of friends in church and in theater and in music for me, book clubs, things like that, but they weren't concentric circles. Gotcha. They were all spread out, and our boys were getting into middle school, and it was difficult to keep up with them. When we moved back to Gastonia in 1997, we found that Thomas Wolfe was wrong. You can go home again. And those same people and those same groups, not all the same people, but that same feeling of community was there. And the interactions between the musical interests and the outdoor activities and the church and the book clubs and everything else, that it wasn't just narrow. It wasn't the same people.
Gotcha.
But it was interrelated, and this county offers so much outdoors, and the talent musically and theater, amateur though it may be, all of those connections seem to they jibe. They work together. There's a harmony. There's a vibration that that you don't get anywhere but, I guess, as the gateway to Charlotte.
Absolutely.
As Saturday Night Live would say.
Absolutely. Oh, that's terrific. So listen, I appreciate you sharing that, and I agree. There's just a unique. Of course, I'm totally a Gaston County homer, but yeah, it's a unique feel. I've traveled enough and spent time elsewhere that I agree with you completely. So, one last question, Bill, and we'll get this episode wrapped up. So, knowing what you know now, what advice would you give your 20-year-old self?
Ooh. There are so many things that I can't say on a podcast that I would tell myself, but I believe one thing would be when you find your home, make it your home, keep your patience, and understand that there are going to be a lot of setbacks, a lot of obstacles, a lot of bad calls in ACC basketball. You can't let that define you even in the moment. So yeah. I would tell myself to learn how to get a handle on my temper, learn how to get a handle on my long-range vision, and understand that truly those things won't kill you, but they can make you stronger if you learn from them.
Yeah. When you're 20, it feels like they're going to kill you sometimes, right? It's just with that lack of perspective when you're 20. And I've said this more than once on this podcast as well with talking to others, is I'm afraid it requires, you have to have experience and age to gain some perspective. Wish you could. I'm just afraid, not afraid, but I don't think there was any way I could have any real perspective at age 20. So I appreciate you sharing that. So this has been really good, Bill. And of course, the main point here is to bring awareness to the organization. There may be a student out there or a family or a teacher or who knows who might hear this and immediately think of a student, right? Or someone that might benefit from this, right, that may not be able to get somewhere or get this opportunity otherwise. So you've already shared a couple ways, but let's kind of repeat if we can. How can our listeners find more information about the organization? Just anything and everything you'd like to share there.
Well, first and foremost, visit our website.
Yep.
We're on Facebook. Like us on Facebook, and
okay,
check that out. And the Facebook will link you also directly to the website. And then do contact any student of music or either through our website, but also this Music Education Foundation is not only started by music teachers, but is still very well supported. There is the Gastonia Music Club back in the 50s. Sharps and Flats organization is still around and supports helps with the auditions, but basically sponsors the Scholarship Winners Concert. The Gaston String Orchestra, if you're a string player and an adult, and you're looking for an outlet, we have folks that are professional caliber and those that admittedly
that sounds like that
don't read music so much.
That might be another episode of Gaston's Great.
Great.
And
the
string orchestra.
The Gaston Symphonic Band, all of those groups are out there. There are outlets for adults and students, but if you love music or especially know a student who loves music, please take advantage of
Absolutely.
us. We're there for you, and that's our whole mission.
All right. Well, really, I appreciate that, Bill. So, listeners, you heard it here, and maybe someone out there who's not familiar with the organization, or again has a child or a relative or a student or somebody that they know who might benefit from these opportunities. So, again, it's a great to hear about the Music Education Foundation here in Gaston County. So like I do every week, I'm going to finish up with my own book recommendation and a quote or thought for the week. And I'd pick this one. This is a book I read probably back 3 or 4 years ago, maybe a little longer, by Ken Blanchard and Truett Cathy. Truett Cathy is the founder of Chick-fil-A, and they wrote a book called The Generosity Factor. And I was kind of intentional picking that book. It's about giving, and how that path can lead to, it's okay to feel good when you're giving, and but I think that's a path to better life. And of course, I picked it because we're talking about the generosity of here today of so many in our community who support the Music Education Foundation, and so it just seemed like an appropriate book to share this week that I've personally read. And then my thought for the week, I was intentional as well. And this kind of, Bill really touched on this earlier in the podcast, but this quote comes from Henry Wadsworth Longfellow, and he said, "Music is the universal language of mankind." And I think it would be hard pressed to talk to anybody who doesn't have some song, or you don't have to be talented like Bill Moore and the people involved with the, symphonic bands and orchestras to have a love for music. Because I know I can immediately, for me, so many songs might take me back to a specific moment or a specific event, or remind me of something. Especially friends of high school and college, and music is such a big part of so many different times in our lives. So I really like that thought and quote from Henry from Longfellow. So take that for what it's worth, especially when someone like me who has zero musical talent or ability, I can still enjoy some good music when I have the opportunity. So to our listeners, thanks so much for taking the time to listen to today's episode. Please continue to spread the word if you can about the podcast, and please don't hesitate to contact us here at our email, which is podcast@gastonsgreat.com. We're always looking for suggestions for future podcast topics and guests. You can find the podcast and subscribe at the website, gastonsgreat.com, or anywhere you listen to podcasts. And please continue to follow us and share even on our social media platforms. And according to Amy and Naomi, please give us a good 5-star rating. That helps get the podcast noticed. And thanks again to Bill Moore for being our guest today. Gaston's Great is produced and brought to you by Naomi Hunt and Amy Anderson from GSM Services and edited here locally by the Sumner Group. I'm your host, Stephen Long. Thanks again for hanging out with us, and please keep coming back to hear more reasons why Gaston's great.